today we're going to be looking at classes in Python. I love classes and they're really useful and cool, and what they basically allow us to do is to think about our programs in a object-oriented way. And don't get confused by that, because an object in a program, it's just like an object in real life. That's what we're trying to physically represent a lot of the time. So for a car, for example, so we might have an object which is a car, and it might have a color like red, and it might have a make, and it also might have some functionality like being able to drive forward and drive backwards or change gear, and all sorts of those functionalities. So what classes basically allow us to do then is to represent all of this data in a nice data structure, which we can then easily use for multiple objects. So without further ado, before I confuse you, let's just actually learn by doing and get started. So I'm going to start now, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a class, and we're going to be thinking about it in the context of like a game. We're going to have a character, and we're going to be able to name that character, and that's one of the real cool uses of it, really, is games. So let's get started. So we've got this class now called character, and notice that the C here is a capital. This is just standard practice. When you're creating an object, just create that object with a capital letter. So we've got C. And then what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you that we can do this just for the sake of it, we're going to have a class variable. So I just want to show you that we can do this. And this variable is just kind of like a global variable within the class. And it's going to be accessible by all of our methods through, directly. So we're going to have character count equals 0, and what we're going to do is just every time we create a new character or a new instance of a character, we're going to increment this value. So what we need to do then, the most important method is our constructor method. And a constructor is just the method that runs by default when we create an object instance. And we're going to be looking at object instances nearer to the end. So we have this constructor method, and what does it look like? It just looks like a function, but we have this special variable called init, I suppose. And we need to pass self always. So whenever we create a method, we also need to pass this self parameter. And then on top of that, though, I want name. So when we initialize our object, and when we create an instance of that object, we're going to pass it a name. And we store all of our attributes here now. So we're going to have all our characters' attributes in this little section. So we're going to say self.name is going to be equal whatever name we give it. And then I also want to give them some items. So we're going to say self.items. And to begin with, our character is just going to have this hypothetical sword. And on top of this, so here we've created our character. So the way we now access that top variable is by actually referencing the class itself. So we're going to say character dot. So that's this character here is this character here, and we will see later that we actually use this dot notation in order to interact with our class. And we're going to say plus equals 1. So the first thing that happens is we now create an instance of our object of character. Our self.name is going to be whatever name we initialize it with, and our items is going to equal just this list which has a sword in it, and then our character count is going to increase by 1. So next, what I want to do is we're just going to want to display that name, because you can imagine a game just displaying your name somewhere in the top hand corner of the screen or wherever. So we're just going to pass self, because we're not passing any parameters here, we're just simply going to have a print statement. And we're going to print welcome, and then it's just going to be the name. And then this needs to actually be self.name, not name, because the reason this could be name was because we passed it as a parameter, whereas here we don't have access to name, but we do have access to self.name. So it's referencing, self is kind of, we're referencing this particular instance of this class. That's what we're saying. So next, there's going to be 2 more methods. And obviously methods are just functions within the class. So when I say method, I just mean function, but it's within the class, so we call it method. So I'm going to create this method called update inventory, and it's going to have self as always, and then an item. So if we were playing a kind of a game which kind of looks like a board game, and we stood on a particular square which had an item on it, then we might want to add that item to our inventory, or we just pick up an item. Then we would call this method, and to begin with, we're going to print this, you found a something, and then this is going to be our item. So we've now found this item, and what do we want to do with it? We want to append that. So if you know how lists work, then we're just going to access the self.items again, and literally we can just do .append, and then this is going to be our item. So the new found item is now being appended to this list of items, which updates it. And then the last thing I really want to do is we're just going to display these items with items display, and I think we'll call this inventory update, just so it's consistent. So inventory update, because we had name display, inventory update, items display, and we're just going to pass self again. We're not updating anything, so we're just going to print all of the items. So we're going to say your current items are like this, and we're just going to iterate through our list essentially. So we're going to say for I in self.items, which is just this list up here. So for I in our list, we want to print I. So that's it. So that's going to be the body and structure of our class. Now that we've created the whole class and the whole body of our class with all its methods and all its class variables and all of that, we can actually start interacting with it. We never have to update this. If this was now a finished class, we'd never have to do anything to it ever again, and we could continuously make new objects or instances of the character object. So let's do that. And we do that by saying, let's say C1, which is going to stand for character 1. This is simply going to be equal to character, and then we're going to initialize that with a name, like Sheldor. Remember, because we said that when we initialize our class, it's going to have one parameter. If we had two parameters, then this would need two. If we had none, then we wouldn't need any, and so on. But you'd still need the parentheses. So we've got C1, and now of course we want to interact with our class and our methods. So let's start by doing C1, and we're just going to display our name, and that's using the name display method like this. So this is going to display our name, and then what we're also going to do is we're going to update our inventory. So inventory update, and maybe we've just found a shield, So we found a shield, and we're going to pick up that shield, and we're going to add it to our list of items. And then finally, we just want to display our items that we've actually got. So that's all we need to do. Something else that I should show you to actually access the character in the same way that we access these. That's how we can access character count. So we might just print, if we just start by printing the number of characters. So number of characters created, and this is a bit trivial, we wouldn't really do this, is, and our character count. So that should be 1. So let's now go ahead and run this Python script, and everything worked perfectly first time, which is nice. And we can see number of characters created. We obviously wasn't perfect. I take that back. We didn't leave the placeholder, so that's why there wasn't an error. So the number of characters created so far is 1. Welcome Sheldor. You found a shield. Your current items are sword and shield. So what's really powerful now about classes is, like I said, we've created the body of this class. So we don't ever have to do that again. We can literally just come to the next section of our code, and we can now say C2, so character 2 equals character, and then that could just be monkhouse, and then we can print, we can just do C1 dot name display, for example, and we will also just do, and make sure this is C2 because C1 is obviously the other object, and we'll do items dot display too, well, items display, and when we execute this script now, what we've got is welcome monkhouse, your current items are just stored. So just like that, it's so powerful, literally. So you can imagine. So of course that's so powerful. We've literally created this body, which would be much bigger. Of course, there'd be a lot of methods and a lot of variables that we might want to define. But what's so cool is how we can literally just create a new instance in just one line. And in fact, we can also we could generate them with for loops and randomize all the parameters, and that's kind of how you could create random PC players and so forth. So that's really cool. So that's the basics of classes. That's all we're going to cover today. So hopefully you learned something and you can build something cool. What would be really cool is to integrate this with something like Pygame and actually use Pygame as the front end, and then have the class structure as your back end, interacting with the player. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.